Hi guys, I welcome you back to this video series, and this is the second part. Today we are going to be looking at this hello world code to understand what's going on over here. Well, first of all, we need to first build this program before we can run it, and one of the options here for building is this. So after building it, we go ahead to run it, and yes, we have the output here. Well, when you look at this output, the way you thought about it is right. This is printf, meaning that it's printing out something to the console. This is the console, and we have hello world being printed out to the console, and then you have another space just after the hello world. Well, this space is because of this character here. It's called the new line character. Now I'll explain line by line of this code to understand more about what's happening behind the scenes. At the beginning of this code, we have these two lines. One is include, then stdio. This is short for standard input output, and then .h. This h stands for header, meaning that this is a header file. If you look at this word include, it means that we are including something. What this line does is to include the code in this file. The same with this line, include the code in this file. However, for this very program, we shall not need this line, so we can even delete it out. And if we build and then run again, we should get the output right. Well, why is this line important? Its name is standard input and output, so it means that if we are going to input or output anything to the console, we shall need to include some of the code, some of the functions in this file. That's why we need it, and one of the functions in this file is the printf function. This means that whenever you want to use the printf function, you will need to include this file. We are okay there? Great. Now from there, we go to this line of code. This is int. I already told you that int stands for integer. In C programming language, the basic modules are called functions. We divide the problems we want to solve into functions. This is called the main function. As we shall see later, we also have other different types of functions. The ones which we declare ourselves and other built-in functions. When you look here, we have printf. Printf is also a function. However, this is a built-in function. We don't write it ourselves. The word main means that this function is called main. What makes it a function? The brackets in front of this word tells us that this is a function, and the int at the beginning means that this function is returning an integer. That's why when you look at the end, there's a line of code saying return 0. So since we have an integer here, it means that at the end of this function, after this function has finished running, it will return some integer value. That's why we have this line here. What does that mean? That means that whenever you have a function returning a value, you make sure you have to return that value. You have to have this statement. So these two statements go hand in hand. You get that? When you look at the end of each line of code, you see that there are these semicolon. Yeah, the semicolon is what signifies that this line of code has ended in C programming. Whenever we have a semicolon, it means that this line of code has ended. You should never leave out this symbol, or else if you leave it out, your compiler will complain and report some errors whenever you try to run or build. So take note of that. To summarize what we've talked about, this is the basic makeup of a C program. We shall include some files. The files contain some functions which we shall need to use later. The basic building blocks for a C programming are called functions. A function can have a value that it will return. Return where? We shall see that later. A function should have a name. There is a special function called a main function. The main function is where execution of our program starts from. Regardless of whether you have other functions down here, whenever we run our program, it will start from the main function. We have another function here, and it's a printf function. It has taken in what we want to print out, and then it ends with a new line character. This is called a new line character. And then a semicolon, which signifies the end of the line of code. And then we have a return statement. Alright, we are good there. Another thing you need to note is you shouldn't miss out these curly braces. This is what signifies the beginning and the end of the body of a function. The beginning and the end of the function. Alright, let's go deeper and understand more. We've already printed out this to the console. Now we're gonna do some interesting stuff. Now let's do some interesting stuff. In C programming, we have what we call variables. A variable is an identifier for a value, and every variable must have a data type. As we go on, we shall look at the different data types in the C programming language. Now, let's say you have your variable. It's an integer. You have your variable, it's an integer, and let's say that variable is called products. And you also have another variable called customers. What do these lines of code mean? First of all, we are saying that we have a variable, an identifier, and it's of type integer. So our products are numbers. This is what it means. Our products are numbers. And we also have customers. Our customers are numbers. What we've done here is called declaration in C programming language. After declaring your variables, you can go ahead to give them values. How do we give them values? Since we have already declared our variables, now we can simply go ahead to say products equals to 9. This means that we have 9 products. You get that? And then we can say customers equal to 20. Oh, this looks pretty cool. You have more customers than the products. We can try to print them out to the console, and we shall make use of a function in this library, standard input output. We shall make use of the function called printf in that library. A printf quotation marks, and within the quotation marks we can say the products are, and then we put the percentage symbol and then D. This means that wherever these two symbols are, put an integer. Which integer will you put there? Okay, you put a comma here and write the integer you want to put in this place. So when you run this program, okay, let us put a new line after printing out this so that we can visualize it properly. So when you build and run, great, you can see this out. The products are 9. What is happening here is that we are printing out this statement, the products are, and then after that we are saying, hey, after this word you expect an integer, and that integer is the one that's right here. That's why you can see this being printed out, and we are telling the compiler that, hey, after printing this out, put a new line character. That's why we are seeing this space here. Maybe you can ask yourself, if we didn't put this new line character, what would have happened? We can try that out as well. Let's say we don't put that there. Now instead of every time placing build and then run, we can directly press build and run, which does the two steps in one go. Do you see the difference? In the first place we had a space here. This time we don't have any space there, and it looks a little bit cluttered. So that's why sometimes we like to put this new line character, build and run, and we have that space there so that we can look at our output in a pretty spaced way. Great. You are building your C programming skills, and you're adding on more and more tools to your bag every now and then. Now, what if we want to print products and customers? What shall we do? One way of doing it is to copy this and put it down here, and then instead of products we just say customers, and then instead of products here again we put customers. And then when we run this build and run, we get this output. The products are 9, the customers are 20. We are not doing pretty bad, we are doing pretty good. How about if we want to just print all of this in one line? What shall we do? One way of doing it is, instead of putting this new line character, we can delete it and instead put a space, and then build and run. Great, we have everything in one line. But hey, we have written 2 lines of code. Isn't there a way we can just use 1 line of code and print this line? Of course there is. What we shall do is to copy this one out and come here and put a comma, and then, well, this comma is simply for making us look at the lines clearly, look at the output clearly. But even if you leave it out and just leave the space, it's also fine. So we can instead comment this out. Oh yeah, I've said commenting. Well, you may ask yourself, what's commenting? Commenting is simply telling the compiler that, hey, whatever I'm putting in front of these 2 forward slashes, leave it out. Don't treat it as lines of code. It's only there, but I don't want you to treat it as lines of code. Just ignore it. That's what it simply means. And we use comments to make our code more understandable to us, maybe after we come back later after a long period of time and we cannot figure out what it was. So we can use these lines of comment to help us to understand what it was. We shall be using them more and more later, now that I have talked about them. Well, back to this line of code. I'm saying that printf, the products are expected digit, that's products, and then the customers are expected digit. But hey, we are saying expected digit here, and then we are saying expected digit here, but we're only passing 1 digit, which is products, 1 integer, which is products. What shall we do? We simply put a comma and pass another integer. Sorry, I was using integer. I was using digit instead of integer, but actually they are not that much different. However, the right word is integer. We are saying here that we're expecting an integer, and that's products, and then another integer, and that's customers. And if we run this, oh, it is saying that there is an error. And if we pull this one up and you look at this error, customer undeclared, first used in the function. Oh yeah, I forgot an S. Well, whenever there is a problem and such a thing comes out, you can pull up the build messages and look at the build messages. It will usually give you a clue about what the error is. Now when you look at this one, customer undeclared, indeed customers are undeclared. We had customers instead of customer. So when you run this again now, no error at all, and the output is here in 1 line instead of 2 lines of code. Another thing, let's say we want to add 2 values. What shall we do? We are going to be looking at exactly that in our next video. Alright, thanks for watching and see you next time.